So we can. Third reading.
County City Council for June 14, 2021 is now in session. Roll call, please.
Council President, Mr. Arcaro,
Present.
Mr. Emery,
Here.
Mr. Goff,
Here.
Mr. Kozeski's absent, Mrs. Ledford. Here. Mr. Moiseo,
Here.
City Manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Present.
And Finance Director, Mr. Williams.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two sets of meeting minutes to approve. We begin with minutes of May 24th, 2021. Are there any alterations or corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the special meeting of June 7th, 2021. Are there any alterations or corrections? Roll call?
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for May 24th and June 7th have been approved. We have an awards presentation this evening, and with us tonight in chambers is our Spartan of the Month, Jenna Williams. Would you please come forward? You're good. If you could read this in the record, please.
Certificate of Achievement Spartan of the Month. The Spartan of the Month of June is Jenna Williams. Jenna is a ninth grade student at Conneaut High School. Her nominating teacher, Mr. Gabe Cellini, wrote, Jenna is an absolute gem in the class. She has genuine intellectual curiosity. She guides classroom discussions in a thoughtful way. She is helpful with students who are struggling. My favorite thing about Jenna is her positive attitude. Several times this year, I've seen her being a good friend to her classmates, going the extra mile and seeing to it they have the support they deserve from their peers. Jenna exhibits those qualities that make her a representative of what it means to be a true Spartan. Signed, John J. Arcaro, Council President, and Richard Gaw, Council Member, and dated this day of June.
Oh, okay.
Before you run?
This is my grandpa, Doug Williams, my dad, Sean Williams, and my grandma, Robin Williams.
And.
Of course, Dr. Neal.
Okay, very good. All right, congratulations.
Thank
once
you.
again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
If I go just right, I'm like,
Takes after his grandma.
This is Moose Club. Ruben Schwartz about the fireworks. Okay. They would like to address council.
Okay, moving on to citizen comments. And Mr. Williams, I believe we have a few people signed in.
you.
Okay, good evening to our guests who would like to address City Council. Community participation is an important part of local government and is encouraged. Please be advised that City Council sessions are audio and video recorded. When your name is called, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. No abusive or threatening language is allowed. If you have a specific question, you will receive a follow-up answer from either council or the city manager. There will be no public debate at this time. When you are finished with your comments, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you for your participation. And our first speaker tonight is Ruben Schwartz.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ruben Schwartz, 941 Furnace Road. I have decided this year because they had said they weren't going to have fireworks. I decided to take upon myself to try to make sure the city has some fireworks. And I just thought it would be a good thing for the city to have. We need to get back out of this mode and lift up the city a little bit. And there's a lot of people have joined in and helped me out. I guess I needed to know from city. I had talked to Jim Hockaday. He said that we could use the Parkview, is it called? Lakeview down here for our bands and for our maybe having some food stands and having car shows and a few of them items, and maybe have the public bathrooms opened up for the 3rd of July. And if for some odd reason it did decide to rain out, we have a backup date of July 10th to make sure that these fireworks do happen. We are trying to make so this is one of the largest fireworks the city has had so far. We've had a lot of donators so far, so we are trying to get around the $20,000 mark between paying the bands and the fireworks and the car shows, everything together. So we have so far, we've had a little over $12,000 donated. We are actually looking to ask council to see if the city's going to donate something for the city. I know other years Jim has said that the city has donated $2,000 or so before, and we're just looking to see if they'll help us out and try to make this event move forward. Everybody's excited about it. So other than that, I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted me to ask.
You got a lot of guys wearing blue shirts there.
The Moose Club is actually taking the main sponsorship of this because they're a 501 nonprofit organization. So everybody that donates, they can get a tax write-off that way. For me, you're not getting a tax write-off through me, I guess, because I'm not that. But so they stepped up the plate. They're being the main sponsor of it. So, which is greatly appreciated. And thank you very much to the Moose Club for helping out. And any donations or any checks that are being made out, everything's being made out to the Conneaut Moose Lodge. So they can take care of all the financial paperwork. I mean, I've been helping do most of getting things together, but these guys have been helping me out with insurances and all that. So they make sure the city gets insured. The fireworks company also added the city on as an insured, so to cover the city on that. I've talked to Mike Colby. The police department is on board to help us out. I've been trying to reach the chief. I've talked to the assistant chief, and he said that he thinks everything would be okay. So I need to talk to Chief Lee though and make sure everything's good with him. But I would assume it would be with everybody else being on board with it. So I guess my question is if council wants to approve that the city wants to help out or not. That'd be my question. So other than that, I have no more.
Ruben, The check, donation checks Moose Lodge, is there a Moose Lodge number or is just Conneaut Moose Lodge?
473,
473,
472, I'm sorry.
472? Okay.
So you're just coordinating, they're the
Well,
sponsor?
I started it, but then when people, I was actually going to do it myself, just take it upon myself and do it. But then when people started asking if they can donate to it, I don't have the ability to give them the write-up. So I went to the Moose and asked these guys if they would help me out with it. And they jumped on board right away and helped me out. So greatly appreciate to them. And then everybody that's kicked in, I mean, restaurants, businesses, they've came out of the woodworks to help out. And everybody really wants this whole thing to happen. I know it's a very short term. I mean, we didn't have much time, but we're still trying to make it happen.
And we do have legislation on the agenda tonight. Has everything been correct situated with that?
Correct. So the Moose Lodge and Mr. Schwartz turned in a joint application for the special event. The Moose Lodge is the 501c3 sponsor of it. They do have to get me their insurance certificate yet. Couple things have been changing around. Originally, they're going to do the car show and those things at the Township Park, but that's going to seek use of Lakeview Park. So they owe me a couple items there. And we discussed that before this meeting tonight. I feel pretty comfortable with that. The fireworks company has already sent us an insurance certificate with naming the city as an additionally insured for their show. So for the fireworks portion, I certainly have no issues. For the Lakeview Park piece, there's a couple little things that we need to iron out. We've talked about some vendors and some other things. There's nothing at this point that I would say is a deal killer as long as we check all the little boxes and get them done. I also understand that these folks are all trying to do this on a relatively short order. Usually events like this take a long time to plan and pull all those materials together. I think they've done a great job given the time span that they've had to operate it. We also have a second special event application, which is the Chamber of Commerce. And a young lady named Amanda Marshall, who had filled out an application to do the 4th of July parade that would happen that Friday, July 2nd. And they have turned in all the materials required for that, with the exception of the Chambers having their insurance company send us the insurance certificate. I've spoken to Wendy. I'm confident they'll have it to me here in the next day or two. So we should be okay on both of those. If we are able to pass them, I have no issues with either event. As far as police and fire coverage is going to be the standard. They're relatively similar to everything that we've done in the past. Neither Chief Lee nor Chief Colby have expressed any concerns about that. The one and only kind of dangling concern that I have is for the Lakeview Park. Obviously, we did not energize the restrooms last year for any special events, so we will need to go through that building and make sure the public restrooms can be opened up and are operational. So confident in the time that we have left that we can get that done. But it's the only thing I don't know for certain is in ready to roll shape.
Okay.
Is the parade happening the same day?
It'd be the night before the Friday, and the fireworks would then be that Saturday at 10 p.m.
Listen, we understand it's a short notice, and we've done a lot of work in the short period. It just, we didn't realize we weren't going to have it until the last minute. And I mean, not just me, but everybody has stepped up to help out, and we're really trying to make this event happen. If there's anything you guys need, just tell us. We'll do whatever we need to do to compromise and work with you guys. I mean, if it's insurances or whatever we got to do. I mean, we just appreciate everybody working with us to let the city have some events. And I just think it's important. We have a nice city to show off. Why not?
All right.
Do it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Moose for sponsoring this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to get the community up and running again
Yeah.
after the last year and a half. So
I'm
Appreciate it.
impressed, I have to say, and really thankful you guys all came together. It's very impressive. Makes me feel good. Good job.
okay, our next speaker is George Coleman.
Good evening, council. My name is George Coleman. I own and operate Save-A-Lot at 350 West Main, Conneaut Plaza. First, thanks for the opportunity to speak to everybody tonight in this forum. And really, this is more questions to help myself, being the business owner of Save-A-Lot and the representative of the plaza. With the road construction, everybody is terribly struggling. As you will hear shortly, and as most of you already know, Little Caesars has been forced to close, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I'll let Ben, the franchisee, address that. But we need to turn around and get some information from somebody to tell us if and when two-way traffic is going to open back on 20. And I don't know who to address the question to, or if I address it.
So ODOT's projection is around the middle of October.
Okay, that doesn't make me happy, obviously, nor I'm sure the rest of the tenants. I don't know if there's any way to do anything with that, since I'm under the understanding that we're tearing up 2/3 of the road to the north side. They're gonna put all their drainage in, all their culverts in, and then pave that. When that's paved, then they will start working on the south side. And I guess that's about 1/3 of the road left. Is there any way at all that they will permit two-way traffic,
Prior to that,
single lane?
it's unlikely. And the reason why is on this, the stormwater collection system for Route 20 outfalls on the south side of the road. The apex of that is right at the corner of Goldsmith curve. So if you ever see the double catch basin grate there, we're kind of right at the peak of the curve. If you look down that, the structure is about 20 feet deep. So they are going to replace the balance of that structure. So they will be about 20 foot deep in there. And what they're going to do is they're going to use a portion of that road as a platform to operate from. And in order to maintain safety for the guys that are down in the hole 20 feet down, they're probably going to maintain one-way traffic. They have to move equipment and materials up and down the road, and they're going to need more than just a single lane because they're going to be operating at 20 foot of depth for the balance of that south curve. So it is very sandy soils. It's very unstable. If you drive through and look at the soils there, it's very obvious what they're made of. So that's a precaution that, both ODOT and the contractor, I believe, are pretty settled on that, they won't be able to do two-lane traffic.
My next question leads to one of the ways around to get to the plaza to help the tenants is to come down, obviously, Blake, Salisbury to Gore to Amboy, and then back in 20. And there seems to be, I cannot verify, but lots of complaints back to me that the tracks seem to be tied up one or the other. So even though it's possible to come around that for pedestrian traffic, it's not feasible because the trains are there. Is there any way that the city can address that?
We've done our best to address any of the train stoppage situations. We have reached out to Norfolk and Southern, who seems to be the major infringer as opposed to CSX. We do fine every train that stops in excess of 15 minutes. It is about $1,000 fine. We do try and enforce the maximums on those fines each and every time they do that. However, we have no legal authority to order a train to move. And it could be even our ability to fine trains for stopping on tracks could be eliminated based on the outcome of a pending lawsuit at the Ohio Supreme Court level right now. So we have limited ability. We have spoken with Norfolk Southern. We have expressed our concerns over their blocking of tracks and its impact on businesses as well as public safety. But we have limited ability as a city to enforce or request anything of the railroad.
It is my understanding from what you've said prior that as of the end of October or whenever the period is this year, the 20 will be open two-way traffic from the plaza back to town?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I question from what little bit I know, which is nothing. Right now, they're done digging at what is the new restaurant. And the last catch basin to tie into the plaza
Mhm.
is the third drive over.
Mhm.
Why aren't they trying to complete that also?
I don't know that could you rephrase that? I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Right now, they have dug up to the very edge of the plaza, right where the new restaurant is.
Mhm.
The restaurant has two drives.
Uh-huh.
The plaza's first drive is the third one. The catch basin for the plaza that they're supposedly going to tie into sets between the second drive from the restaurant and the first drive of the plaza.
Okay.
It doesn't appear that they're going to tear that up this year.
So I don't know. We'll have to go over if you'd like to walk through it in the field. We can have Frank, who works for Merchant Gaffney, he's the site supervisor. You may have met Frank already. We can certainly have Frank come out and walk you through the project. If you have any specific concerns, you can certainly call Frank. I'll give you a cell phone right now.
Please.
So any business owner right there that has a question regarding anything related to the construction or construction timing or the movement of specific equipment, or you have a question about any of those pieces, you can reach Frank at 330-235-2431. I'll read that again, 330-235-2431. And I'm happy to go over it. The plans for the reconstruction was designed by CT, but the actual contract let and the contract management is done through ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation. So Joe Kohlermain is the on-site supervisor. He's out there every day, and Frank with Merchant Gaffney is out there every day. So if you have a specific issue, you have a specific need on the site, you can talk to one of those two gentlemen. The city does have an inspector available, but on an as-needed basis for those elements. If there are specific problems or you feel like the city needs to mediate between ODOT and the contractor, you can contact my office. I'm happy to help you with that as well.
Super, appreciate it. Okay, again, thank you everybody for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Our next speaker is Kong Guang Ni.
I'm the Carnival Plaza, the Kimball Face owner. I come here for about low 20, same with the church. All I need to know is the city of Carnival can do something about the road, maybe open the road, something like that. Because when the road close, I only got like few customer left. Every day, like I say, like I'm getting the restaurant getting close pretty soon. No any customer go there. That's why I come here for. Because the low 20, when they close the road, right, people can't get there, how to get there. So that's why I come here for today. I only got a little bit of business left. If I come here for maybe the city, they can do something, open a road or not. So.
Well, unfortunately, just due to the way the road is laid out and its need for full replacement, and I don't think anybody would question its need for full replacement. It is shot. The under drain structures are all shot. The stormwater structures are all shot and need to be replaced. And I fully understand that it's a huge inconvenience to have that set up as one-way traffic. And the way it's set up is traffic is directional towards the hospital. So if there is a public safety emergency, that they would be able to travel unimpeded to the emergency department. So that's our number one reasoning there as to why that's set up that way. As far as alternate routes, there's two local alternate routes that would be, Parrish to Salisbury to Amboy and back around, or you can take a southern route, which you go down Daniels and up through Keith's.
All the customer that call my restaurant, they always say it, but before coming to my restaurant, they only take like 5 minutes. Right now, they're taking like 30 minutes. So the people, they don't like to go there. That's why I don't got like, just got like little bit business left. That's why I just thinking come here and maybe the city, they can do something, you know. That's why I come here for.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Benjamin Mills.
My name is Benjamin Mills. I'm the owner and operator of Little Caesars franchise 3317 in Conneaut, Ohio. I'm really just here in sign of solidarity with my fellow business owners in the plaza. Today is our last day in business. When I left, I think we had 15 pizzas left to sell, so they're probably closed by now. I was just coming here to just kind of hear some details around the project. I mean, it is public knowledge, so I did pull up the ODOT website and reviewed the extent of the project. I've worked construction, I've ran equipment, I've built bridges. I understand the need to replace infrastructure. Obviously, there's nothing you can do now. The road is tore up. I just wish there'd have been some better planning, perhaps, just to some way mitigate how devastating it's been for myself and the other tenants at the plaza. You know, that is the primary route of travel. You know, we're cut off from the city. So, you know, in the last 5 weeks, you know, we're down 25% a week. You know, just like we can't sustain that type of decline in traffic. Had the project, you know, potentially been completed in October, we would have looked at, you know, reopening this fall, you know, do a rebrand, remarket, re-advertising push, all those things. But it says on ODOT that they're going to do the same thing in the spring. And, you know, the estimated completion time right now is July of 22. Again, I've worked construction. It's not going to be July of 22. It's probably going to be, they're probably going to max out their timeline. So to reopen and try to reopen just before wintertime when sales are going to be declining anyways, and just to close again next spring, it's just not feasible for us. So, you know, all our options are on the table. You know, never say never, but the likelihood that we reopen is probably slim to none. We were so optimistic this spring coming off of the pandemic and seeing all the restrictions and social distancing ease up, like everyone else in this room surely was, you know, a very tough 18 months for private citizens and business owners especially. And, you know, margins the way they are and the labor environment currently, you know, you see all the now hiring signs, you know, it's really been tough. And considering this was our first 5 years in business, you know, that's typically the hardest for most businesses. You have the largest investment, you know, capital investment of your dollars. I'm a free market guy. I understand it, you know, sink or swim. It's just unfortunate. I'm not here to point the finger at anyone or, you know, jump up and down, kick and scream or anything. It just wanted to come here with George and everyone else. And, you know, hopefully some of the other businesses survive. I mean, I have family here and, you know, I'd like to see Conneaut flourish. And unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards for us. So I still have family here. So I look forward to traveling the road when it's completed. And, you know, but I mean, you go through there right now, it's like the apocalypse. I mean, and you know, you indicated how long it takes your customers to get there. I mean, I'm coming from PA and to go Daniels and around, I mean, it's an extra 15 minutes. I don't blame my customers for not coming, you know, and once we broke the news to our staff, you know, last week that, you know, because we really sought out every option available, you know, to stay open. But when you're losing money every day just to stay open and losing money every day for the past 5 weeks, since May 10th anyways, it just, you know, you got to know when to call it quits. So that's the only reason for me coming today.
I do want to clarify. So the full reconstruction that causes the one-way route, that will be completed in October. The balance of the project is mill and fill resurfacing. So That is not going to be a road closure. If anything, it'll be temporary grinded out. And then when, the day they lay the asphalt, which is a relatively quick process, which you've seen them do on Route 20 East and Broad Street and Lake Road in the last 2 years. So that portion of the project will be completed in 2022. That full resurfacing from Kingsville through downtown to the Viaduct Bridge, that will be happening next year, as well as the Center Road Bridge element.
But the road won't be.
It won't be closed like it is now. So that temporary one-way closure will cease in October.
Okay.
It's going to be just like any other road replacement.
Right, yeah, those do move along much quicker than, the full road closure, and, and I understand. I mean, I've drove Route 20 in the winter the last 5 years, like, it needs work. So, part of me is happy to see it's, but just to not even have a minute to catch your breath coming out of the pandemic and just barely getting by, every business took, PPP dollars, and that kept a lot of people open, but, the labor market, the rising cost of wages, a lot of the other costs that are unseen, the PPE, the cleaning, just especially with a restaurant. I mean, our costs are through the roof, and margins are already slim on a $5 pizza to begin with. So, it really wasn't in the cards for us to withstand, the road closure. That was essentially the final nail in our coffin. And George had reached out to somebody from ODOT and explained to me that it would just be, the milling and resurfacing, but, then it's going to be directly in front of the plaza too. So, I mean, it's the pain isn't going to be over this year. It would continue next year, certainly for us. So, I don't know. We're going to look at all our options. Like I said, I mean, I still paying George rent for another year anyhow. So, we might be able to rise from the ashes. I don't know, but, just thank you all for your time, and, just wish could have been a better way to go about it. That's all.
Well, I appreciate you. And I'm sorry to hear that you have to shut down. And I can definitely empathize with everybody, but we have no control over ODOT.
I
and their
knew that coming
projects.
in today.
The only thing we have control over is passing our ordinance to pay their bill. So we've been dealing with that. And we have gone on the record, myself and other council people here on multiple occasions at meetings and on the street, telling people to continue to patronize these businesses that are being affected by this construction. And, when you talk about planning, we've known about this for a few years. It was pushed back, and now they finally going with it. And it's really out of our control, just like the wonderful railroad is out of our control. The only thing we can do, and if you ever watch any of our meetings or read the newspapers, we've tried to address that. We have police reports made every time there's a closure. I live in that area, so I'm affected by it. And I've had a number of your pizzas, as have my kids. So they're going to miss that, but would hope you would reconsider. And with the mill and fill is definitely a way different process than what's happening right now.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
But
And
like I said, we can empathize with you, but it is really out of our control. We cannot control ODOT or the railroad. We try, but we can't.
and I'm not here blaming anybody here, and I knew it was a state project. And there was a time when I was the construction worker that would have been all excited about having a job last that long. So there are people that are benefiting. And
Right.
There's just standing together with the other tenants and the other people there, and just coming to just let you guys know what's going on. And there is some collateral damage to that
Absolutely.
project. So
We understand, and we wish it was different, but it's Route 20 is, you knew the condition prior to it, and it's been long overdue, and it'll be a lot better when it's finished, and just hope you'll be able to overcome.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your phone.
I would just like to say, I'm glad you guys all came, got on the record. I'm glad, we have media coverage here to hopefully get the word out that you guys are struggling over there. And for people to please make the extra effort to go around and visit these places. I mean, we all have to stick together for this. This road's gonna be great when it's done, but it is causing some issues over there. And, you know, we don't want that to happen. So maybe with people reading about this, you know, people will make a little extra effort. So thanks. I appreciate you guys.
Okay, our next speaker is Nick Parma.
Hello, Nick Parma, 810 Mill Street, Conneaut. I'm just here representing the Moose as the president. Ruben pretty much hit on every topic prior when he talked. I was going to try to go after him, but didn't get to the paper fast enough. So, I mean, everything you said, I just want to thank the city for allowing us to get this event going. Sober. And if any businesses out there want to donate, just make checks payable to the Moose. You can drop it off in the doorbell or get a hold of one of us. We'll be able to do it, or Ruben. And I'm just here also to ask if the city could help donate anything that they can donate to help the firework cause and try to make it out of the pandemic and start getting back to normal and try to make this a good event for the city of Conneaut and get everything going. So anything you guys can do to help, that would be great. And that's pretty much all I have, is just following up with Ruben.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our citizen comments unless council has any citizen comments that they've received. Okay, next up is communications.
I have none this evening.
Does council have any communications? Mr. Goff?
Library had a dog walk at Malik Park, and it was a pretty good success. Everything went well. I was over there handing out water. We had a good time.
Everybody policed their dogs, hopefully?
Yes, they did.
Thank you. Okay, any other communications? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports of the administration, beginning with City Manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Thank you, Council President Arcaro. I have a couple updates for you tonight.
Thank you.
I want to draw a little bit of attention to the Asheville County Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's one of the boards that I do have the good fortune of sitting on. But Stephanie Siegel, the executive director, has graciously offered her time and expertise to our harbor planning meetings and two successive discussions about branding and marketing of the area. And I just want to give her kind of a special thanks for the donation of her time and talent. And it was very well received. They were a couple of our best attended meetings. We had really great participation on the part of all the businesses in that harbor area. So really want to thank Stephanie for reaching out and handling those elements. We continue to move forward with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the environmental assessment and discussion. In fact, tomorrow we have one of our first public kind of discussions amongst stakeholders for the Conneaut Port, which includes any number of members of people, whether it be DNR or businesses and other things that relate to the ports, to have those discussions as they go through their environmental assessment of that project. So related to that, the state controlling board had their hearing today, and they appropriated the additional $1.9 million towards that project on top of the $4 that they'd already allocated for the city to embark on phase 1 of that project. So once we have a chance to kind of pull everything together, we will start beginning our timeline for prep, bid, and construction of that phase 1. It's incumbent upon that environmental assessment, the NEPA process being completed by the Army Corps of Engineers. So we will be bringing that timeline to you once we have all those documents in place. One of the first step, though, will be, now that they've made the appropriation, they're going to send us a grant agreement for the additional 1.9. They will also modify the first grant agreement we have to have the same timeline, construction timeline. That'll be completion for that phase one. Obviously, we give ourselves extra time at the end of the project to make sure all the paperwork's complete, but it'll have a December of 22 completion date on that phase one. Obviously, we would hope to be well in advance of that, but there will be a modification to the original grant agreement and then a second grant agreement for the second allocation of dollars. That will have to come before council, as well as any fund creation and appropriations. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Route 20 Waterline Phase 2, we're pending a final construction schedule, getting the two contractors to, talk about site space sharing and those items. So once we have that final schedule, I'll make sure that you're aware of it. The Chestnut Stormwater Phase 3, you do have a change order in front of you that is due to the lack of availability of C909 pipe, which is a plastic pipe. In lieu of that, we're accepting ductile iron. Only thing I would say is there's no true engineering difference in terms of the quality of either material. When confronted with the choice of ductile iron or C909, the city typically trends towards C909 because it's less expensive, it's easier to handle than ductile iron products. But as far as their durability or any of those things, they're nearly identical. In this case, ductile iron, as you suspect, is more expensive, but also available. So the plastic pipe is 90 days out if we wanted it, and that's well beyond our construction timeline for the project. So it has been reviewed by CT Consultants, and they have signed off on it and did all the price checking to make sure it was in line with what's currently available. They're satisfied with it. We were well under our established budget for this project, so it won't result in any additional local share to the city. It'll be met with 100% grant dollars. So we have that on for tonight, as well as in the form of ordinance. The Buffalo Street Sewer Boring Project, that is in final engineering. We're hoping to let that project in the September area, August, September area, for September start on that project. And that is at the Buffalo Street tracks just north of the library. Water treatment filtration improvements. We are waiting on the pending OPWC award grant agreement from OPWC. We will receive that some point in time after July 1st. There's a new electronic process, so I'm hoping it's quicker than the old paper process. I'll let you know, but as soon as that is in place and that grant agreement is fully executed, we can do bidding and construction on that project. And that is a replacement of the water treatment filter media, low lift motor pumps, as well as a valve turner for the water distribution system. ODOT PID, our favorite project, the Route 20, which we've had some discussion about here tonight. The minor culvert replacement on Lake Road is scheduled for after July 4th. It's not a road closure, but it will have temporary signals hanging on it. So it will have some traffic effect on Lake Road as well. That is scheduled for closure after July 4th, but completion prior to D-Day. Once I have the full traffic MOT from ODOT and announcement, I will make sure that specific announcement goes out. But again, it'll be alternating one-way traffic. We continue to do hydrant flushing around town. I know there have been a couple news articles. I appreciate the media carrying that hydrant flushing schedule. Just a reminder, if you do have residents reach out to you, if they have some cloudy water or it looks a little murky, to run their taps for a minute or two. It should become fully clear. If you're running it for more than 5 minutes and it doesn't clear up and you want to call one of the guys from the water department, we're happy to come take a look at it. But water flushing and hydrant flushing does have a tendency to disturb any sediment of the pipe. Actually, the goal is to get that sediment out of the pipe. So we do this annually. So if you do have calls or concerns, you can direct them back to either the fire department or the water department, water filtration plant. But typically, in most cases, just running your faucet for a minute or two, it'll run clear. And you should be good to go. Those are all the major updates. There is a fire report attached here for you to take a look at. I do want to thank Chief Lee specifically for assisting the Railroad Museum. They are trying to get back open for this season. Obviously, they're still concerned for their volunteers that are largely elderly. They needed some assistance with barriers. We provided masks to all their volunteers just to ensure that everybody could have a safe experience and they could reopen that to not only visitors, but also for this fall when kids come back to school. I know the Railroad Museum is a good tour stop for a lot of the younger kids at the elementary school. So we want to make sure that they could reopen safely. And I appreciate Chief Lee stepping in and handling that element. And that's all I have unless there are specific questions from council.
If you can back up to the Center Road Bridge, give an update on that. We really need to get that open.
Yes. So they were out today inspecting the bolts. There is some corrosion. They were going to bring an additional testing piece of equipment out today to see to what extent they're corroded. I will have a memo for you no later to Wednesday. Then Wednesday, I was hoping to have it by today, but they wanted to bring a piece of equipment out and do testing on some of those nuts. So they're going to bring that back out tomorrow and complete that for a written report by Wednesday. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for the city manager?
That was it.
Okay, move on to the finance director, Mr. Williams.
No report this evening.
Move on to the law director, Mr. Smith.
There's nothing to report except that we regret losing the services of Jackie O'Donnell, our assistant city prosecutor. She had to resign, I guess, for personal and family reasons. Jackie was an exceptionally good trial attorney and prosecutor, and we're very fortunate to have Nick Brown. He's a native of Geneva. Step into her place. Nick is also very well qualified U.S. Army vet, and I think he'll do a great job for the city.
Thank you. Any questions for the law director? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Reports of any committees. Okay, hearing none, liaison reports.
I have a liaison report for Cable Advisory Board. I just wanted to let everyone know there's some programming updates, and mainly with the church services are going to be on Sundays and Wednesdays now, I believe. Not every single day, as the community has reopened and we've gotten back to our content creators going around and continuing with their shows. They now are generating more content for the channel, so they are kind of moving around hours and broadcasting. So that's the update.
Okay, thanks. Any other liaison reports? Okay, hearing none, move on to our ordinances and resolutions for this evening. And begin with ordinance 8820, which is on the table, and I imagine it will stay on the table. Okay. We have 4 ordinances in third reading, and we'll begin with ordinance 1921.
An ordinance to amend chapter 110 of the City of Conneaut Codified Ordinances governing fees and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, as you know, we've talked about this. It's been pending. It's gone through the 3 reading process. So I will entertain a motion to proceed.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Arcaro.
A second.
There's a motion to approve, correct?
Yeah, motion, yeah, to act on ordinance 19-21.
Okay. And it's been seconded.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Hey, ordinance 1921 is approved.
Mrs. McBoy? Yes.
Joe joined online. She can't vote.
Okay, moving on to ordinance 2621.
I believe Kyle had a question.
I'm sorry, I missed that conversation.
We had a late joining by Zoom and you indicated that can
Beginning July
participate but not
1st.
vote.
Beginning July 1st.
Okay, I thought,
But the emergency, because what expired on June 2nd was the health orders, but it's the remote legislation language that depends on the lifting of the state of emergency, which has not been lifted, or the expiration date on July 1st. So it's still before July 1st, so she should be allowed to vote.
okay, so June 2nd is not the case, it's July 1st.
For people tying in attending remotely, that's correct.
Okay, well, in that case,
I'm sorry, Mrs. McBoy? I can't hear. Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
okay, ordinance 1921 is passed. Move on to ordinance 2621.
An ordinance to amend section 1369.03 of the City of Conneaut Codified Ordinances governing issuance of demolition permits and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to act on ordinance 26-21.
Is there a second?
One moment. Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2621 is passed. Move on to ordinance 2721.
One moment. An ordinance to delete section 1379.04 of the City of Conneaut Codified Ordinances governing escrow for vacant property and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, is there a motion to proceed? Is
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 27-21.
there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2721 is passed. Move on to ordinance 2821.
An ordinance to delete section 1137.13B of the City of Conneaut Codified Ordinances governing zoning fees, charges, and expenses and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, this is the final ordinance of that quadruple. Is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to act on ordinance 28-21.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2821 is passed. Okay, we have no ordinances in second reading. However, in first reading, we have 15 ordinances to consider, so buckle up.
You should say 15.
15.
Almost the whole alphabet tonight.
Okay, we will begin with resolution 3321 if you're ready. Yeah.
A resolution urging the Ohio Senate to maintain critical funding for libraries at 1.7%.
Mr. Hockaday.
This is related to the state of Ohio's biennium budget. And I think I'm pretty concerned about their stabilization of all the funding for all the state agencies, and then stabilization of funding for school districts, and stabilization of the local government fund, and a cut to the public library fund. Libraries have served Ohio very admirably. They continue to provide a wide range of services that are not just access to books. Now they're critical access to citizens, particularly library, the internet, children's connections to schools and remote learning in a year of a pandemic. It just seems unconscionable, as every business in Ohio and just about around the country is complaining about availability of workforce, but it might be their only way to apply for that job is online, and their only access is through a public library. That to me makes absolutely zero sense. I think it's ill-considered. I think people need to realize that for every dollar that you invest in a public library, you get 4 economic development dollars in return for that dollar investment. I know, based on a lot of the things that went on in 2020, just as businesses struggle, most libraries operate on shoestring budgets to begin with. Our library is at least 50% funded locally, but so many of those libraries around Ashtabula County operate 100% on the public library fund and no local revenue. So it's a pretty hard sell, in my opinion, that we would look to take from libraries when they provide so much to so many people across so many levels of services, whether it's access to jobs, access to other social services, access to online healthcare, access for children to go to school. I think it's something that the state of Ohio needs to change its position on. And I find it sad that the state of Ohio used to be a leader in public libraries in their availability, and now is one of the leading states in making cuts to those agencies. I don't think that's a legacy that that Ohio should want to portray. The only thing that makes me feel good about public libraries when I think things are bad in the world is there are almost 18 times as many public libraries in this world as there are McDonald's. So that's a heartening statistic, but in order to keep that alive, we have to fund them. I'd like to see the governor and the House and Senate return their funding to normal and rescind the cuts that they proposed to one specific sector and none others.
Just like the health department issues, again, we have another boneheaded piece of legislation, decision, idea coming out of the state. So thus the reason for this resolution. Hopefully it will go a long way with all the other people that are also against this resolution. Are there any other comments?
I totally agree with everything that Mr. Hockaday said. Fills such an immense
We need libraries.
purpose in our communities throughout the state. So I'm definitely on board with this.
Okay, Ms. O'Connell, if you would read the whereases into the record, please.
Whereas Substitute House Bill 110 contains language which will cut library funding from 1.7% to 1.66% of the general revenue fund. Whereas there are more than 8.4 million registered borrowers in the state of Ohio. Whereas throughout the pandemic, libraries have found new and innovative ways to serve their communities by providing specialized technology assistance, aiding job seekers and small businesses, and adapting educational services to assist students and parents who are new to remote learning. Whereas Ohio has the highest library per use capita in the United States. Whereas in Ohio, public libraries are funded through the Public Library Fund. The PLF is currently set at 1.70% of the general revenue fund, but it will be automatically cut to 1.66 on July 1st, 2021, if the Ohio Senate approves the bill as it is currently written. Now therefore be it resolved by the city of Conneaut that the council of the city of Conneaut respectfully request lawmakers to make public libraries a priority in the FY 22 budget and maintain the PLF at the current FY 21 rate of 1.7%. And the clerk of council is hereby authorized and directed to forward a certified copy of this resolution to the Conneaut Public Library and Ohio Senate Representative Sandra O'Brien.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to suspend the
Suspend.
three
No.
reading rule on resolution 33-21.
There's a motion to suspend a three reading rule on resolution 3321. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy, or Mrs. McVoy,
Be having a connection issue.
Move on.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Ledford, the three reading rule has been suspended.
This time I'd like to act on resolution 33-21.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
She says she's having connection issues.
we can't pass that with 5, right?
Yes, you can.
Can you? Okay. Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 3321 is passed. Move on to ordinance 3421.
An ordinance to create Fund 328 Case Management Grant for accounting for the receipts and disbursements related to the Ohio Supreme Court Technology Grant award to the Conneaut Municipal Court for the purpose of updating their case management system.
Mr. Williams.
Judge Irochi applied to the Supreme Court of Ohio for a technology grant. This one was awarded to the court for $72,794. It is case management software. There's a lot of material in here if you'd like to read it sometime, but basically they can manage cases with less effort. It increases the efficiency of the department. It reduces pressure on staff, streamlining resources, etc. We do need to create a fund though, because it is a grant. Once we create the fund, I'll certify this revenue to the county. I won't have to come back with you for an appropriation because it is a grant to the state of Ohio. So it's therefore deemed appropriate. I can just go ahead and create the appropriation.
Any questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to proceed?
Mr. Arcaro, make a motion to waive the three reading rule on ordinance 34-21.
So a motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 3421. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford.
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
That's an issue.
yes.
You'll need to vote in order to suspend the three reading rule.
Is the volume up?
It is. We're literally.
What you might do is just move on to the next one. And if she joins us, you can go back and ask her how she votes on the rest of them.
So we can move her to the end and get Mr. Moseo's vote, correct? In the roll
Yes.
call?
Yes.
And if you
And
would
all I'm
do that-
saying is that you can go through a number of these ordinances.
Yes.
With the 5, and if she joins at the end, and, you know, votes
We can
affirmative.
go back.
Then you have your 6.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Mr. Moiseo. Mr. Moiseo.
Mr. Moiseo, my apologies.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you could just move him up in the roll call.
I will leave her blank till the end, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, move on to,
No, you can't act on it.
no,
So we're just gonna do this.
You got to be able to suspend the three reading rule before you can act on it.
Yeah. So we still
so
have
we're
to-
just moving on.
we have to act on this yet.
I'm trying to get her to call in. Send her a message.
It will move on to ordinance 3521. As I lost my
Ordinance
spot.
create Fund 329 Security Upgrade Grant for the purpose of accounting for the receipts and disbursements related to the Ohio Supreme Court Technology Grant awarded to the Kent Municipal Court for security-related systems.
Okay, is it the same thing?
It's,
Or do you wanna-
yeah, pretty much this is for a panic alarm system. Judge Irochi applied to the Supreme Court again for, this one was for $22,211. And basically the same thing, we just need to create the fund.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 3521.
The motion is to suspend a three reading rule on ordinance 3521. Is there a second?
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford.
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Call.
Let me try it again.
Yes. yeah.
Mrs. McBoy,
Okay. Three reading rule has not been suspended. Move on to ordinance 3621.
an ordinance to close parts of Depot Street, Broad Street, and Erie Street from 5:30 PM to 8:30 PM on Friday, July 2nd, 2021 for the purpose of the 4th of July parade.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday, you want to say anything else about that, other than what you said earlier?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
Motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 36-21.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford.
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo,
Yes.
Go ahead and try it.
Mrs. McBoy.
Yes.
Here we go.
So-
Yes.
Back now.
You have Mr. Moiseo still, or did you call Mr. Moiseo?
He did.
Okay,
Do we need to go back?
Yes,
now
I would
to
go back.
34, 21, and
yes.
We'll finish out
Yeah.
this one and then go back. Okay, Mr. Emery, the three reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. I would like to make a motion to act on ordinance 36-21.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford.
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 3621 is passed. We're now going to go back to,
33, she didn't.
we don't have to do 33, so we're 34.
35.
Mrs. McBoy, if you could indicate whether you would like to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 3421.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay, this is Mr. Emery, the three, or wait, I'll get back to my
Terry's
Stand by.
responsible.
Mr. Moiseo. The three reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 34-21.
Okay, there's a motion to act on ordinance 3421. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 3421 is passed. Mrs. McVoy, would you like to suspend a three reading rule on ordinance 3521?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moiseo again.
I'd like to make it, excuse me, make a motion to act on ordinance 35-21.
Okay, there's a motion to act on ordinance 3521. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 3521 is passed. Move on to ordinance 3721. Take your time.
An ordinance to authorize the closing of Broad Street from State Street to Jackson Street for the Conneaut Soapbox Derby from 12 p.m. on Friday, June 18, 2021 through 6 p.m. on Saturday, June 19, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hockaday.
So this is really the same ordinance that we've done for years. Soapbox Derby's done a great job for us. They too, as well as some of these other special events, have a couple items yet to come to our office. I'm confident by the time the event happens that they'll have all their paperwork in order. Obviously, they're scrambling last minute, just like everybody else, once the pandemic order was lifted on June 2nd. So they have been in communication with us. They have been talking to us about getting all that in order. It's the same drill as it has been every other year. Public Works will have some significant repairs to commit with some of the volunteers from the Soapbox Derby to get it smooth enough to utilize as a track. But for right now, I'm okay with this for this closure for this event. Soapbox Derby's done a great job. This is the longest continuously operated regional Soapbox Derby in the United States, and I hope they can continue their tradition.
Okay. Any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Okay, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to declare ordinance 37-21 an emergency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Ledford, the emergency has been declared.
I'd like to, at this time, waive the three reading rule on ordinance 37-21.
It's a motion to suspend a three reading rule on ordinance 3721. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Hey, Mrs. Ledford, the rules have been suspended.
This time I'd like to act on ordinance 37-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 3721. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Hey, ordinance 3721 is passed. Move on to ordinance 3821.
An ordinance to adopt a tentative tax budget for the year 2022 attached here to a marked Exhibit A and declaring an emergency.
Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't believe we're adopting a tax budget. We're setting the hearing date for the tax budget. I'm not sure
That's correct.
what the actual language on that ordinance. Let me see here.
It does say
Yeah, it
adopt
is.
in the header. Do we have to amend?
Yeah, that is not the correct language. I'm sorry. Just saw that right now.
Yep.
So we just amending that,
We're
Mr.
just
Smith?
going to amend section 1 to say that there'll be a hearing on June 28th, 2021 at 12 p.m. To consider the tax budget. And then after that, there'll be a meeting.
After we have the hearing date, then we'll bring it back to council and then we'll adopt the budget at that time. Send it to the county.
And there's no need to declare an emergency on it either, because it deals with an appropriation. That was my fault.
So we don't,
So it just,
No need for
suspend
declaring.
the 3 reading rule and pass it.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
I'll make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule. We have to say as amended, Mr. Smith? Yes. As amended, ordinance 38-21.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 3821 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
yes,
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moiseo, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 38-21 as amended.
Okay, there's a motion to act on ordinance 3821 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
The ordinance 3821 is passed. Move on to ordinance 3921.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to advertise for bids for the 2021 pavement repair program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hockaday.
Okay. This is the list that we discussed from the balance list from 2019. We did make the additions of the chip clog seal from 190 to the railroad tracks on Dorman, the Day Street right away from Park Street North, and then the fire department parking lot and access ramp are also named in there so we can get bidding for that project as well. On the backside of the attachment here, Chris Kagelnik with CT went ahead and did a projection if we did all these streets, how much it would cost. It does project to the unit price costing, so you can see what our anticipated unit price cost of this project would be. So if you want to do quick calculations, all of our paving bids, what the pricing that we're accepting is the actual unit price. We're setting a budget, as we discussed during the work session, for our total anticipated spend. And we can always adjust up or down. Council can include or exclude any streets that are named here. Or if they have something else that they feel that needs to be addressed that's not on this list, we can extend those unit prices to that list. But whatever the unit price is, you know, for instance, the pavement planing, we want to do some additional grinding, $3.50 a square yard. You can extend that price to any street in the city. So this is just as we have done it in past years. We have our named streets and we try and take as many streets in as we can.
We did not receive that
Yeah,
in our
it's not
contract. So
In the Xerox packet, it should have been an additional attachment afterwards. There's one. And were there others?
So we don't, we're just appropriating the money, correct?
You're authorizing the bid. of
Yeah,
this
yes.
list.
So we don't have to worry about what streets we're gonna do at this point.
No, correct. It's the same as the 2019 list, and you can choose a la carte how you want to do that once we project the costs against them. There is, as we discussed, for the additional appropriation of the paving projects, the additional $100,000 from our carryover fund that we discussed to leave that balance of $40,000. At a later date, Mr. Williams, if you would choose to go up from there, if there's additional revenue from over collection over what was estimated, we'll have to recertify that revenue once it's closed. So, but that will come in the budget amendment that's also on tonight's agenda. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this ordinance? If not, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
To declare ordinance 39-21 an emergency.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford? Yes. Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moisia?
Yes.
And Mr. Emery, the emergency has been declared.
Thank you. I'd like to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 39-21.
Motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 3921. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moisia?
Yes.
And Mr. Emery, the three reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you, President Arcaro. I would like to motion to act on ordinance 39-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 3921. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moisia?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 3921 is passed. Move on to ordinance 4021.
An ordinance to amend the 2021 budget through appropriations and fund and interfund transfers attached Tier 2 and marked Exhibit A.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. The first fund we're going to amend is the general fund. We have a severance pay line item for a police officer that is resigning. So we do have to pay the outstanding vacation pay that was left on the books. The patrol equipment donations, the next two are a reappropriation of donations and a reappropriation of a damage reimbursement. They really have no impact on the budget since they were a reimbursement and a donation. So we had a donation from the county prosecutor's office for the police department. We're reappropriating that money. And there was some damage in the fire department and we received a check as a damage reimbursement. We're just reappropriating that as well. In the software support, that's for the fire department. The fire department has a new software license agreement that they're having to pay for. We also need the additional software support for EMS billing. So that is $3,600. And then we have engineering for the port grant. I don't know if Mr. Hockaday wants to expand on that a little bit.
And
but
this
that's
is for
50,000.
the commencement of the environmental assessment portion that's required as a pre-grant agreement requirement that we complete. We discussed this at our work session, and it's one of the line items in that large packet of port pre-engineering piece that I submitted to council a couple months back. Happy to discuss it at any further length if you have any questions.
If you can just let the public know which port project.
Okay. All right. So this is for the USDOT MARAD grant award of $19.5 million. It requires that all environmental engineering be completed prior to final grant agreement with the city of Conneaut. So we need to go through that portion that includes the rail extension into the industrial park, as well as an access road into Deepwater Port. Council previously authorized some survey work as well as some aerial drone work that leads to some of the environmental assessment pieces. And that was approximately $21,000. The exact number of the EA is $41,000. So we're appropriating a little bit more in case there's any additional work, so we don't have to come back to council if that additional appropriation would be required.
Okay.
So that's a total of $70,900. About 10,000 of that, like I said, is not actually impactful on the budget because of the donation and reimbursements. The next one is the street improvement fund. We discussed this at the work session where I feel comfortable about appropriating additional 100,000. We had 141,000 in certified revenue that has actually been based upon our projections. So if those revenue projections come in as projected, we would have that additional 141,000. We also have some additional prior excess that was not spent, so that can be reappropriated. And then there's also the 5% delinquency that we factor in once we get that second half settlement. And if there is additional funding available above that 5% delinquency, we can go ahead and reappropriate that. So I gave council a summary, pretty exhaustive summary of those funds rather than handing out all those additional papers. And the bottom line, after the recertification, we have probably another 48,000 that we could potentially reappropriate. It might be a little less, a little more, I don't know. But I think we'll know in July exactly what that dollar figure would be. But as I said, I feel comfortable about appropriating an additional 100,000 right now. And then the last one is the sewer treatment fund. This was inadvertently left off the by me off of the original budget. We had a truck in there, a dump truck for 162,000 last year. I'm not sure if I just didn't realize we were going to add another truck at that time, but there's another 67,000 for, what type of truck is that, Jim?
It's just a 1 ton.
1 ton. So we were going to include this in the original budget. It just was left off of the Excel spreadsheet that was given to council. So we just wanted to add that back in there. So the grand total is $237,900 in additional appropriations through this budget amendment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
I'll make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 40-21.
This motion is suspend a 3 reading rule on ordinance 4021. Is there a second?
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moisia?
Yes.
Hey, Mrs. Ledford, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
This time I'd like to act on ordinance 40-21.
This motion to act on ordinance 4021. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moisia?
Yes.
Ordinance 4021 is passed. Move on to ordinance 4121.
An ordinance to authorize the use of the sandbar area for the purpose of hosting a 4th of July fireworks presentation and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we all heard the comments earlier. Is there any other additional comments or questions?
Do we need to add about use of Lakeview Park or?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Do we need to include Lakeview or Sandbar and Lakeview Park, or?
Mr. Smith, I think that's directed to you.
Could you repeat that question again?
In the ordinance, it authorizes the use of the sandbar for the purpose of hosting a 4th of July fireworks presentation. And I think they also spoke about having maybe vendors, concessions, a car show at Lakeview Park
A concert.
concert.
They want to use Lakeview Park also.
At this point, that may be a little premature. I'm not sure. What was there an application to include Lakeview Park?
They amended their application.
Okay, I haven't
include
seen
Lakeview Park. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I assume you can approve it if you so choose, or you can pass it at the next council meeting as well. I mean, I don't
have an issue with it.
I'm not deeply
Included in
concerned.
there, advertising use of the sandbar area and Lakeview Park, that would clean it up. And
We can just amend.
yeah, why don't we just amend it?
Okay. Any other comment on this?
And their original intent was not to use Lakeview Park. Township Park, I mean, these are big events, and I can understand their position as well, is they basically said, we can't turn on a dime, we have to get staffing, we have to do these things. So they came back to us and said, would Lakeview Park be available? And I think we're trying to be as accommodating as possible, you know, for their car show and some live music. There's no alcohol at the event. So you know, there's absolutely no time for an F3 permit or anything along those lines. So pretty comfortable with it. In our pre-conversations with the Moose Club, they're going to get all their final stuff, and they'll get it redrafted and submitted to it so it conforms.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Arcaro, to declare ordinance 41-21 an emergency as amended to include Lakeview Park.
Okay, there's a motion to declare ordinance 41-21 an emergency as amended to include Lakeview Park. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moiseo, the emergency has been declared.
Like to make a motion to waive or suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance -4121 as amended.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 41-21 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moiseo, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 41-21 as amended.
Okay, there's a motion to act on ordinance 41-21 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 41-21 is passed. Move on to ordinance 42-21.
An ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to establish an opt-in natural gas program pursuant to section 4929.27A1 Ohio Revised Code jointly through NOPEC as a NOPEC member.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, there are 2 ordinances here that are related, 42-21 and 43-21, and both relate to this opt-in of the NOPEC natural gas program. So as I understand it from the presentation from NOPEC at this last work session, that unlike electrical users that can switch in and out of aggregation programs, the same is not true of aggregation programs of natural gas. That's not the same as natural gas providers. You can do that. So with an update of the state law regarding gas aggregation programs, if communities repass their original authorization as a aggregation gas member and enable the specific section of Ohio Revised Code, those changes can be made instantaneously as service providers from electric and et cetera. Right now, there's an existing delay. If you're a NOPEC gas member and you choose to opt out, or if you're not a NOPEC member and want to receive those NOPEC rates, there's a significant delay on the opt-in. So this would eliminate that through local enablement. So these 2 ordinances, 42-21 and 43-21, allow that to be so.
Okay, any questions or comments on ordinance 42-21? Now, is there a motion to proceed?
Motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 42-21.
Motion to suspend a 3 reading rule on ordinance 42-21. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Emery, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 42-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 42-41. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
yes,
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
The ordinance 42-21 has passed. Move on to ordinance 43-21.
An ordinance approving the plan of operation and governance for the NOPEC natural gas aggregation program for the purpose of jointly establishing and implementing a gas aggregation program as a NOPEC member and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to declare ordinance 43-21 an emergency.
Motion to declare ordinance 4321 an emergency. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Moisia.
Yes.
Hey, Mrs. Ledford, the three reading rule or the emergency has been declared.
This time I'd like to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 43-21.
There's a motion to suspend a 3 reading rule on ordinance 4321. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Like to act on ordinance 43-21.
There's a motion to act on ordinance 4321. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
The ordinance 4321 is passed. Move on to ordinance 4421.
An ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council NOPEC 2021 Energized Community Grants Funds.
Mr. Hockaday.
Okay. This is a grant series that we've had for the past 3 years. We do have to vote to accept it as a community. During the presentation that we had this last week from some of the NOPEC members, they did want to note that it is reduced from past years. It's been in the mid 30s and going forward, it's looking like the mid 20s. So I believe their estimate was approximately 27,000 for the 2021 grant series. There's no allocation for what that would be used for. That's something that council can discuss and determine what they would like to use that money for. Though it does have to be an energy efficiency project that meets the parameters of the grant. And the last note that I'll make is, regardless of the status of 4221 and 4321, the city of Conneaut would have received this. So it's not contingent on any behavior by the city. They're separate issues. But this does have to be back to NOPEC no later than June 30th. So we don't want to pass it at this meeting. We would need to pass it by the next meeting in order to accept the funds.
Any questions or comments regarding ordinance 4421? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
Make a motion to act on or waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 44-21.
So motion to suspend a 3 reading rule on ordinance 4421. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Make a motion to act on ordinance 44-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 4421. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
yes,
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 4421 is passed. Move on to ordinance 4521.
An ordinance to amend section 3.1 of the city manager's contract to increase the salary effective June 15, 2021, and not declaring an emergency.
Okay, as you know, we discussed this in executive session. And I, for one, would like to say that Mr. Hockaday has been accomplishing the biggest goal that we've set for him, which is economic development in the city, has been doing a fine job. So as well as doing managing the day-to-day operations of the city as well. So I think he's deserving of this raise. Any other comments?
I concur.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to proceed.
To make a motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 45-21.
Here's an motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 4521. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Emery, the three reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 45-21.
It's a motion to act on ordinance 4521. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
The ordinance 4521 is passed. Move on to ordinance 4621.
Ordinance to amend section 3.6 of the city manager's contract to increase the percentage of OPERS pickup effective June 15, 2021, and not declaring an emergency.
Any questions or comments regarding ordinance 4621? Is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 47-21.
So motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance 4621. Is there a second?
Second.
Is it 46 or 47?
46. And
46.
Oh, mine says 47.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Ledford, the three reading rule has been suspended.
This time I'd like to act on ordinance 46-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 4621. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
It's nice.
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Hey, ordinance 4621 is passed. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
service.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to ordinance 4721.
Ordinance authorizing an additional cost of $42,020 for the Chestnut Street Stormwater Project Phase 3 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hockaday.
So this has to do with the material availability of the waterline material to complete Chestnut Phase 3, as previously discussed in work session and as well as in my administrative report. The original contract price was $602,730.80. The additional cost of material and other items is an additional $42,020 for a revised contract price of $644,750.80. This is a change from the C909 pipe that has a 90-day lead time to ductile iron pipe that's closer to a 30-day lead time. I know the contractor has already placed this order, hoping to move forward with this project in a timely fashion. So this does not result in any increase in local share. It is actually available in the grant funds that we have because we came in so far under budget with the original projected cost and contract cost. So this has been accepted by CT Consultants and is ready for approval if council would accept it.
Any idea when this would commence?
I think they are looking for commencement in the next couple of weeks. The water line is the first of the utility elements that will be addressed. All three utilities in the street will be addressed, water, sewer, and storm sewer. The water line needs to be replaced first, but there's pavement removal and other things that have to happen before they even get down to the water line. So once they have a firm delivery time on the water line, they're probably going to aim for about 2 weeks in advance of that to start their construction process.
And will traffic be maintained, or is this going to be another closure?
It will ultimately be a closure because it's all 3 utilities dead center on the road.
Okay, so if the media could put that out to the public, another road that they'll have to detour around. The price of progress. Bear with the. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to proceed?
Mr. Arcaro, I'll make a motion to declare ordinance 47-21 an emergency.
So motion to declare ordinance 4721 emergency. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moiseo, the emergency has been declared.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 47-21.
Motion to suspend a 3 reading rule on ordinance 4721. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 47-21.
Motion to act on ordinance 4721. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arcaro?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Goff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy? Mrs. McBoy?
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo?
Yes.
The ordinance 4721 is passed. And that completes our ordinances for this evening.
I wanted to keep going.
Yeah, we're on a roll. I don't know. I was getting kind of confused at the end there. Well,
All the
all the numbers.
technical issues. Okay. Move on to unfinished and old business. Just a reminder that we will have a special, not a special meeting, a public hearing at 6 p.m. a week from today, which is, somebody help me, June
The 21st.
21st. Thank you. At Corpus Christi Parish Hall for considering the trash districts.
At 6 p.m.
6 p.m., correct. Anybody else for unfinished and old business? Okay, move on to miscellaneous business. You guys are all tuckered out. Okay, well then I'll keep going. First off, I don't know if you want to think about this or consider it this evening, which would be the request from the Moose Club and Mr. Schwartz to donate to their cause of the fireworks. So if you want to think about it and do it at the next meeting, or
What would we
Would you like
have,
to
or
proceed?
what would we be able to donate?
we've generally in the past done 1,000 to 2,000. Mr. Williams tends to pull open one of his drawers and, is able to find something that we might be able to donate. So it's up to council, but it's generally within those ranges. So,
I would love to go ahead with that.
so you would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for council to donate $2,000 to the fireworks display. Todd? Five?
Mr. Williams, is that okay?
5,000.
How about five?
No.
15.
John will pass out.
Okay, I'll stick to 2. All right.
Williams? Yeah.
Is that
there's-
okay?
There's 2 in the contingent. We'll take it out of the contingency is normally where we pay it from.
Okay. There's a motion to donate $2,000 to the Moose Fireworks Fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yep. And 1 second. Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. At this time, I'd like to extend my personal condolences and also council's condolences to the family of George Dixon, who's one of our longtime retired firefighters who recently passed away. I worked with George for many years, and he was a great guy.
I'd like to express my condolences also to the family, having worked with George.
And finally, I would entertain a motion to excuse Mr. Kozeski.
Make a motion to excuse Mr. Kozeski.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. And I would just like to say that we did have the Moses Cleveland proclamation drawn up, and that is to be presented on July 3rd down in the Port Authority. There's a group coming in, so we'll have that proclamation for them to present. Anybody else for miscellaneous business? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel and
Hiring, firing, compensating, promoting personnel.
thank you. Is
So moved.
Make a motion.
there a second?
Second.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McBoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, the regular meeting is adjourned and we will be in executive session.